If you're a high school pitcher playing travel ball all spring, all summer, and all fall, I need you to hear this. You are not developing. You are just surviving. And the worst part is nobody around you is going to tell you that. Your travel ball coach needs you in the lineup. Your parents are paying for exposure. And you have been told your entire career that the more you play, the better you get. That belief is costing you more than you know. It is costing you velocity, it is causing you development, and as I'm going to show you today, it may be costing you your arm. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what is happening to your development and your health every weekend you spend on a travel ball field instead of actually training, and what pitchers who are passing you right now are doing differently. Stay until the end because I'm going to show you the real numbers, what your family is spending, what the research says about where this path leads, and exactly what a real development system looks like instead. The pitchers who show up to me at 17 and 18 having played year-round travel ball, and the pitchers who show up having trained with a real system, I can tell the difference in the first 5 minutes. It has nothing to do with how hard they throw. Here's the belief that I want to address before anything else because it is the belief that drives almost every decision a travel ball family makes. Games equal development. If I play more, I get better. If I pitch more innings, I build more skill. If I get more exposure, I get more opportunity. And on the surface, that feels completely logical. How else do you get better at pitching than by pitching? But here's the problem. Playing and developing are not the same thing. They overlap, but they are not the same. Development requires stress, adaptation, and recovery in a structured sequence. It requires the ability to work on specific qualities, velocity, command, arsenal, mechanics, with the freedom to fail, adjust, and improve without a scoreboard attached to every rep. Games do not give you that. Games give you competition, and competition is not a development environment. It is a performance environment. And when you spend all your time in a performance environment with no real development happening underneath it, you do not grow. You just repeat the same patterns over and over again at the same level you are already at. That is not development. That is maintenance disguised as progress. The pitchers who I work with that make the biggest jumps are not the ones who played the most games. They are the ones who trained the most intentionally and then showed up to games with something new to express. There are 4 specific reasons why more games are not making you better. And once you see all 4, you will not be able to unsee them. The first reason is the one that does the most quiet damage over the longest period of time. Games create fatigue, and fatigue without structured recovery and adaptation does not make you better. It makes you worse. I want to be clear about something before I go further, because I think context matters here. Spring ball and summer ball are not the problem. A high school season followed by a summer travel schedule is normal. It is expected, and there is real value in that competition. Spring is where you go perform against your local competition, and summer is where you go get seen by coaches and scouts. The problem starts in the fall. When a pitcher finishes his summer schedule and rolls straight into fall ball, tournaments, showcases, more games, without ever taking a real shutdown period, he has eliminated the only development window in his entire year. The one block where the arm can actually recover, where the body can actually rebuild, and where real strength work and velocity training can happen without a game around the corner forcing everything into maintenance mode. Here's what that calendar actually looks like for most high school pitchers who play fall ball. Spring high school season, 3 months. Summer travel ball, 3 months. Fall showcases and tournaments, 2 more months. Winter bullpens trying to stay sharp, 2 more months. And then right back into the spring. That is 10 months of throwing with no real adaptation block anywhere inside it. And inside that calendar, there is no room. No room to build, no room to recover, no room to actually develop the physical qualities that velocity and command acquire. The fall was supposed to be the window. Instead, it became more games. Here is what that looks like when you compare it to the fall that is actually supposed to be used for. After the summer, shut down 6 to 8 weeks, then a real strength block, 8 to 12 weeks. On top of that, a velocity and skill phase. Then you're ramping back into the spring. And inside that structure, you get progressive overload, strength gains, a real velocity phase, and skill refinement. The difference is not talent. The difference is what you did in October and in November. When you train correctly, when you apply the right stress and then recover from it, your body adapts upward. Your capacity grows and your ceiling rises. But when you come off of a summer schedule and go straight into fall ball with no recovery window, Your body never gets the signal to adapt upward. It just tries to survive to the next outing. And survival is not a development plan. The pitcher who plays fall ball arrives at spring trials essentially in the same condition they were at the end of the summer. Maybe a little more fatigued, maybe a little more worn down, and wonders why he does not look any different than he did 6 months ago. The pitcher who used the fall correctly shows up with those same trials, throwing harder, moving better, and pitching with confidence that comes from actually having built something in the offseason. That gap is not genetics. That gap is October. The second reason hits differently once you understand what velocity and command actually require to improve. Velocity is not built by throwing in games. It is built by specific training. It is built by training specific physical qualities, force production, intent, kinetic chain efficiency, in a controlled environment where you can push past your current ceiling without consequence. Command is not built by throwing strikes in games. It is built by structured repetition on a specific focal point under increasing levels of pressure until the pattern becomes automatic. Neither of these things can happen in a game. In a game, you are managing. You are protecting your arm. You are working within your current arsenal because those outings count. You are not going to experiment with a new grip in the fourth inning of a close game. You are not going to throw max intent pull downs in between games or innings. You are not going to work on your hip shoulder separation when there are runners on second and third. Games reveal your current level. They do not raise them. And this is the fundamental misunderstanding that keeps travel ball pitchers stuck. They think that because they are pitching, they are practicing pitching. But pitching in a game and practicing pitching are completely different activities. One is performance. One is development. And you cannot develop inside a performance environment because the conditions that development requires, freedom to fail, freedom to adjust, freedom to push past your current ceiling, do not exist when the scoreboard is on. The pitcher who works on a new breaking ball grip for 6 weeks in a training block, taking hundreds of reps with freedom to miss, adjust, and refine, shows up to games with a new weapon. The pitcher who only pitches in games never has that window. He shows up with the same arsenal he had last year, the same velocity, same command, the same ceiling. And here is where it gets worse. Because the game volume itself is not just suppressing development, it is quietly putting the arm at serious risk. And the research about this is not ambiguous. The third reason is one that should stop every travel ball family in their tracks. I want to give you the actual numbers because this is not opinion. This is what the research says. Pitchers who throw more than 8 months per year have 5 times greater risk of arm injury compared to pitchers who protect their offseason. 5 times greater risk. That alone should change how every family thinks about a year-round travel schedule. But it gets worse. Those same pitchers, the ones throwing year-round with no real shutdown time, have a 36 times greater likelihood of requiring surgery compared to those who take a structured 2 to 3 month shutdown period. 36 times. And that is not a fringe study. These numbers come from longitudinal youth baseball research tracking pitchers over multiple seasons. The pattern is consistent. The conclusion is crystal clear. The more months you throw without a real recovery window, the more you stack the odds against your arm surviving long enough to actually reach its potential. Now let me show you exactly why this happens, because understanding the mechanism makes it impossible to ignore. Between 50 and 75% of youth and high school pitching injuries are overuse related. Not freak accidents, not bad mechanics alone, overuse. And pitchers playing for multiple teams in overlapping seasons show significantly higher time loss injury rates than pitchers competing in a single structured season. Here is the physiological reason. Velocity development requires tendon remodeling. It requires the tissues around your elbow and shoulder going through a cycle of stress, breakdowns, and adaptation, getting stronger and more resilient each time. That process requires recovery time. It requires windows where the arm is not being asked to perform so it can actually rebuild. Year-round competition eliminates that window entirely. It keeps the tendons under continuous low-grade stress with no opportunity to remodel upward. The tissues do not get stronger. It just gets more fatigued. And at some point, often with no warning, no dramatic moment, no single pitch, it just gives out. The UCL reconstruction data confirms that this at the highest level. Tommy John surgery rates have risen dramatically in 15 to 22-year-olds over the last 2 decades. College pitchers now have the highest rate of surgery in all of baseball. And when researchers looked back at the history of the pitchers requiring surgery, the most common risk factors are consistent. Pitching more than 8 months per year, playing for multiple teams, high showcase exposure, no structured shutdown period. This is not speculation. It is repeatedly documented in surgical cohorts. And the pitchers walking into operating rooms at 17 and 18 years old did not get there because of bad luck. They got there because nobody told them that the year-round travel baseball schedule they were following was stacking against their arm surviving the journey. Now let me show you what all of this is actually costing your family, because the financial picture makes everything I just said even harder to ignore. Reason 3 was about what year-round play does to the arm. This one is about what it does to the pitcher's ability to grow. When you are playing year-round travel ball games on the weekends, league games, during the week, showcases in between, you are always in competition mode, always preparing, always performing, always managing. And you might want to improve your velocity. You might want to work on your slider. You might want to clean up your mechanics or build a changeup or improve your strike percentage. But you can't, because there is no time. There is always a game coming. There is always something for you to be ready for. Development requires space. It requires intentional blocks of time where the only goal is to get better, not to perform, not to compete, not to impress a scout, just to build, to take reps that might not work, to experiment with new things, to push into uncomfortable territory where your body is forced to adapt. Year-round travel ball does not give you that space. It fills every available window with competition and calls it development. And the pitcher who has never had that space, never has a real training block, never has a period where the only goal is to build, arrives at 17 or 18 with the same stuff they had at 15. I can tell the difference immediately when a pitcher walks in the door. The ones who have played year-round travel ball, they are often tough competitors, they know how to battle, they have seen a lot of game situations, but they do not know their own arm. They cannot tell me what their actual velocity ceiling is because they've never trained for it. They cannot tell me what their best breaking ball looks like because they've never had a freedom to develop it. They are not robust. They are not self-aware. They have been surviving so long that they've mistaken it for development. The ones who come in having had real training blocks, even one real off-season of intentional work, they know themselves. They know their strengths. They know their weaknesses. They know what they are building toward and why. And that self-awareness is what makes development predictable instead of random. That is the difference. And here is what that difference is actually costing your family in real dollars. When you see the actual numbers, what your family is spending, what it is producing, and what the injury risk adds to that equation, conversation changes completely. If you or your son plays on a standard travel ball team with a few hotel weekends, which describes most high school pitchers, your family is spending somewhere between $4,800 and $7,000 for a single fall season. That is one season, August through October. If you are on an elite showcase program, the kind that flies to national events, stays in hotels, and charges premium team fees, that number can go up from $7,000 to $10,000 for one fall. And that is not counting spring ball. That is not counting summer. That is not counting lessons, equipment, or the hotel you booked for the showcase that did not produce a single college offer. When you add it up across a high school career, the tournaments, the travel, the team fees, the showcases, most families are spending $20,000 to $40,000 or more on a path that is producing almost no measurable development. Here is the number that should stop every family cold. Year-round pitchers have a 36 times greater likelihood of needing surgery, or one Tommy John procedure, one serious shoulder injury, and that $30,000 your family invested in travel ball is now accompanied by a $50,000 surgical bill and 12 to 18 months of watching from the dugout while the window your son has been working toward his entire career quietly closes. The coaches, the tournament operators, the showcase companies, the travel teams, they all get paid whether your son develops or not, whether his arm holds up or not. You are the only person in this equation whose incentive is fully aligned with your son's long-term health and development. And that means you are the one who needs to see these numbers clearly. Games matter, exposure matters, competition builds things that training cannot fully replicate. A showcase is a real opportunity, but only when your son shows up with something worth showing. The family that spends $5,000 on fall ball with no real development underneath it has spent $5,000 to stay exactly where they started. The family that invests in a real development system, adds velocity, builds a secondary weapon, sharpens command, protects the arm, and then uses showcases strategically, that family is compounding. Every dollar is working. Every outing is proving something that was actually built, and the arm is healthy enough to keep proving it. That is the difference between throwing money at a Band-Aid and actually fixing the problem. So here is where you are right now. You have heard the research, You've seen the numbers. You know what year-round travel ball is producing and what it is costing. The only question left is, what are you going to do with that information? Are you developing, or are you just surviving? Be honest with yourself. Look at your calendar. Look at the last 12 months. Count the games. Count the tournaments. Count the showcases. Then count the intentional training blocks. The periods of time where your only goal was to build something new. Push past your current ceiling and come out of the other side a different pitcher. If the games outnumber the training blocks by a significant margin, you already know the answer. The pitchers who make it to the next level are not the ones who played the most games. They are the ones who trained the most intentionally and then used the games to prove what they built. They have something worth showing. They know their strengths and their weaknesses. They show up to every outing with a plan, not just hope. And they arrive at their junior and senior year with a healthy arm that can actually deliver on the potential that they spent years building toward. And that is what we built inside the Power Pitcher Pathway. Not a pitcher who can compete, a pitcher who knows exactly what he is building and why he is building it, and what it is going to take to get to the next level. A pitcher who is robust, self-aware, durable, undeniable. If you're a high school pitcher, or a parent of one that is watching this, who has been stuck in the travel ball cycle and is ready to stop surviving and actually start developing, the link to apply is in the description. A direct application to work with me, not a course, not a generic program, a system built specifically around what your son needs to build, so that the arm that gets developed is healthy enough to keep performing when the games that actually matter arrive. The goal is not to be seen. The goal is to have something worth showing and then get seen. Apply in the description, and if you're not ready yet, watch the next video.